Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting to order. And before we start, I need to read a statement. A governmental body may conduct a meeting by electronic means only in circumstances where such a meeting in person is impossible or impractical, and only if the governmental body provides public access to the conversation of the meeting to the extent reasonably possible. The place of the meeting is the place on which the communication originates, and the minutes of the meeting shall include a statement explaining why a meeting in person was impossible or impractical as pursuant to Iowa Code Section 21.8. The reason for this meeting being held by electronic means is due to out-of-town travel by Susan Lance. Susan, are you on?
I am.
Okay. All right. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
It's been moved by Susie. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. I've not received any public comment. Okay, moving on to communications. Tonight it is my honor to introduce Arlo Hedl, and he is our new board student rep. And Arlo, if you'd like to just step up and maybe tell us a little bit about yourself, and we are excited to have you this evening.
My name is Arlo Hedl. I'm a senior at the high school. I've been elected as student body president this year. I've been going to CF schools since kindergarten. I went to Cedar Heights and I went to Pete, so I have a wide breadth of the experience of a student here. I'm really excited to go to these meetings and be able to provide any insights that you need and provide the community with information about what's going on at the high school.
That's just great. Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
So Student Senate is currently working on our plans for homecoming. We've chosen our theme. It's going to be Welcome to the Jungle, and we are starting our preparations for the dance and for homecoming week. For the first time this year, we are going to be doing an activity with the elementary schools where we will be making tiger paws that each principal can choose to get and have the students decorate and hang up to tie in the elementary schools with what's happening with the high school. We are also working with the Dunkerton Student Council to put on the annual Do Better, Be Better Color Run 5K that will be held on the morning of September 30th in Dunkerton. It is organized by one of our gym teachers, Jamie Smith. All proceeds will go to a scholarship that she has created that one student from Cedar Falls and one student from Dunkerton receive. After homecoming, we will begin our plans for the food drive, where you will be working with our 3 leadership groups, sophomore, junior, and senior leadership, to continue our winning streak of the most cans out of the area high schools. So, while our sophomores are beginning to become acclimated to the high school, our seniors have already started our graduation preparation, which is scary. We had a meeting today where we began to get information about our college searches and got measured for our caps and gowns. On Tuesday, the junior and senior students are being encouraged to go to a college fair that is being held at the McLeod Center. So the school is trying to get everyone to think about their future. And one interesting thing that's going on is that a science teacher is organizing a spring break trip to Costa Rica to study sea turtles there. So that should be super cool. And all of our groups at the high school are kind of getting their year started. Our Mentors for Violence Prevention group and our senior leadership work together on the first day of school to welcome the sophomores, and they put on a back to school night for them as well. Practices for the fall play are beginning. And in terms of our athletics, our football team is up 2-1. There was a tough loss to Iowa City West on Friday, but we're still ahead. And then our women's volleyball team is currently ranked #1 and is undefeated. They are 9-0, and the seasons for men's golf, men's and women's cross country, and women's swimming are also underway. Yeah, that's all I have if you have any questions.
Arlo, great job. Thank you.
I just have a quick comment. I want to tell you how high the bar is for you, because our former representatives, I was on my way to the Iowa State game. We are not going to talk about the outcome of the game. However, I got a text from Drew Stenslin and Michael Flancha, who are our former representatives, and they were down there asking if I was going to be there because they know I typically go to the games. Were excited to see me, came over and found me among all those people. So you just need to know that's how close you're going to get to us.
All right.
And they also did say hello to everyone on the board and just had great things to say. So we are raising some great young leaders in our community. So thank you for doing this.
Thank you.
Yeah. Arlo, I have one quick question. Are you going to be able to go to Costa Rica or not?
I will not be going on that trip. I will be going on the French trip this coming summer.
There we go.
So that'll
Okay.
be great. We're staying with families near about an hour away from Paris, so that'll be super cool.
That'd be really
Good.
nice. Perfect.
Good.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to item E on the agenda, approval of the fiscal 2017 Treasurer's Reconciliation Report. Dan.
Good evening. I'm Dan Lynch, Senior Vice President, First National Bank, and the current treasurer for the school district. Tonight I give you the June 30th Treasurer's Reconciliation Report. The first slide that you will see, and if you're looking at your paper, it'll be the top half of the portion, is the current breakdown of all the depository transactions or activity that we currently have with all the various lenders across the Cedar Valley area. Our primary operating accounts with the Wells Fargo Bank, and you can see that we've got 4 different funds or accounts that are set up there. The general fund, the student activity, food service, and our schoolhouse funds. We also have a general operating account with Farmers, with the balance you can see there as well. In addition to that, you can see the number of investments that we're holding in various mechanisms between savings accounts and CDs, between Wells Fargo, Lincoln Savings, Collins Community Credit Union, Farmers, and IceJet. Our total balance as of the end of the year, June 30th, was $54,645,474.98. The offsetting side, the second screen that we have for you, is our internal accounting, and that kind of breaks down the funds into the various allocations that we have. You can see that includes our operating, our management fund, our trust and agency funds, student activity, food service, entrepreneurial, local option funds, the general obligation or PEPAL, and our debt service. In addition to that, the in-transit and depository items that haven't flowed through the system yet, those 2 items concluded together come up to the $54,474.98. I'm glad to report that the 2 balance.
Thank you.
Questions you might have?
Do I have a motion to approve the report?
I move to approve the 2016-17 school year Treasurer's Report as presented.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments? Thank you, Dan. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Moving on to the appointment of the treasurer. We'd like to, do I have a motion to appoint Dan?
I move to appoint Daniel Lynch as the Cedar Falls Community School District Treasurer for the 2017-2018 school year.
Do I have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments? All in favor signify by saying.
This is a roll call
Oh, roll
vote.
call
I'm
vote, and I knew
sorry.
that, yeah.
Mrs. Coyle,
Yes?
Mr. Hassman,
Yes.
Mrs. Hines,
Yes.
Dr. Kenyon,
Yes.
Mrs. Lance,
Yes.
Mrs. Leeper,
Yes.
and Dr. Shaw.
Yes.
Congratulations, Mr. Lynch.
Yes, and thank you.
Do you solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Iowa, and that you will faithfully and impartially, to the best of your ability, discharge the duties of this office of School Board Treasurer in the Cedar Falls Community School District, Cedar Falls, Iowa, now and hereafter required by law? Congratulations. Thank you. All right. Now moving on to item G on the agenda. Dr. Petit, retiring board membership recognition.
Yes, it is certainly with sadness, but also that mixed feeling of sincere gratitude for your dedication and for serving on the board. We have 3 retiring board members this year, and they have actually totaled 39 total years of dedication to the students of the Cedar Falls Community School District and our entire community, and we cannot thank them enough for that. We do have, first and foremost, Dr. Doug Shaw, who served 4 years. Dr. Shaw, we know we're going to miss your sense of humor, your guidance, your leadership, and as recognition for service to the school board, we have a clock that expresses our sincere gratitude.
Thank you.
Susan Lance has served for 12 years on the Cedar Falls Community School Board. Again, we cannot thank Susan enough for her passion, her focus. I think Susan would appreciate me saying sometimes she has a very soft voice, but that resonates loudly with her spoken words and her passion for the students of Cedar Falls. And again, we can't thank you enough, Susan, for all the work that you've done and continue to do, and we have a clock for you as well. So thank you, Susan.
Thank you.
Last but not least, Dr. Jim Kenyon. He has served 23 years on the Cedar Falls Community School District Board of Education. Again, Jim, you've certainly been a rock for the school district and for the school board, and your guidance, your direction, your leadership has been profound in so many different ways. So thank you very much.
Batteries included?
Yes.
Batteries included?
That is a great question. I did not look.
It's one of those you have to keep moving all the time, like a watch, so. Yeah.
Right, twice a day.
Twice a day.
It's probably permanently set for 5:30 on Monday night.
Yes, it'll chime.
Yes. So thank you. Thank you for your leadership.
Under item H, the informational reports. Dr. Petit.
Yes, we are certainly happy to have Mr. Wedgbury with us this evening, the high school principal from Cedar Falls, to give us the informational reports for this month, which are the ACT reports as well as the Senior Year Plus reports. So thank you, Mr. Wedgbury.
Good evening, everyone. I always appreciate the opportunity to share a little bit about how the high school is doing with regard to these 2 reports, being the ACT and the PSEO, or the college-bound other opportunities that we have for students. So I will go ahead and get started. As you'll see, the red, the green, and the blue. Red is Cedar Falls, the green is Iowa, and the blue is national. And there's a lot of ways that we can look at this, and so I just want to be rather straightforward. I probably will skim over some things just to do with time, but if there's other things that you ever want to come back to and ask more deeply about, I would encourage you to slow me down and we can cover anything of greater depth. As you can see, our average composite score this year was 23.6, which you'll see in a trend line. You know, you can look at a number and it can tell you a data point, then you look at it at a trend and you can say, you know, how does that stand up across time? So when you look at it, you can see our English, our math, our reading, our science, reasoning, and our composite, and see how we stack up in each level against each area, the national, Iowa, and Cedar Falls. It's not a new trend that we typically score higher than our state or higher than the national average. And you can see that across the board there as well. This is where you see it as a trend line. And what it really sticks out to us when we first look at it is, you know, the last 2 years have been the highest that we had ever scored with 24.5. This year we were down to 23.6. Certainly notable, certainly accomplishment, but does stick out as a little bit of a data point that is less than the trend that we had been seeing over the last few years. That's not new, even across the state and other districts in our area. As you look across, there are slight dips in there, but I suppose we don't just accept that as rationale or reason. I think we always have to dig deeper into those results. When you look at the English, the ACT scores dropped from 23.9 to 22.9. The other thing that I will point out is there's always correlations. We always do look at consistency in data. One of the things that we have followed because of the students that we had last year, or that trend line, there was some links tied to our Iowa assessments and how they have done. They have not done quite as well, so I would say we weren't completely surprised that our numbers did drop a little bit. The part that's a little disheartening is sometimes I think we can save everyone, and I think we get our best effort to do so, but in this case, you know, the numbers did drop a little bit. One of the things that the numbers don't say in any of these slides that I think is worth noting is that we did have one perfect score of a 36, and we had 30 students who scored above 30. And so we did have a number of students who just scored exceptionally well. When we determined the top 10% and other recognizing things, when we look at our senior graduating class, we had tough decisions to make. So while the top end was very strong across the average, we did have a bit of a drop. So you can see here as we go through, there's our reading scores, our math scores. The trend is consistent across all of our areas. It didn't just happen in one particular subgroup. So then we look at the ACT college readiness and how prepared are our students for college level coursework. And when you look, you can see that by the measures presented, English was 83% of our students showed college readiness, 57 in math, 66 in reading, 60 in science, and meeting all four was 41%, which is also a slight dip. You'll see that in the trend line here as we look at it, the Ready for College and Career Readiness in English. That was one area where our college and career readiness stayed strong, or at least stayed consistent. When we look at math, there was a dip in math, reading, science, and then meeting all four. We had a really high year last year with the year before with 53%, which dropped to 41% for this current year, or this past year. Which now takes us to percent of ACT or students who are tested and their coursework. You can see again, just in a different graph, how we stack up. If you're just comparing us against a state average or the national average, those numbers look very favorable. But again, we always like to compare against districts that we want to be compared in or against ourselves. Dr. Shaw.
Explained by a change in the amount of students who take the test.
That could be explained. We did have a slightly higher percentage, which is a graph coming up. We do have a few more students who are actually taking the test, and that will always have an impact, one way or another. But yes, that could be impacted, and we'll come to that. And that's where you're right on cue to the next slide. 71%, 264 of our 370 did take the ACT. Another piece that we dug into is we did not have as many of those students, even though the N was high in this particular situation, we did not have as many students take time to go through our ACT test prep situations, being familiar with the test, knowing what to expect on the test and strategy within doing so. So that number was down, so we need to do a better job of making sure that students are not going in for the very first time cold and taking it, that we do everything to make sure that they can be successful on that exam.
Jason, are these students all students that have taken it for the first time?
It's of that of that year, and they may have taken it prior in advance of that.
Okay.
So it's of that class, but they could have taken it for the second or third time as well.
Okay.
This is a little bit about where our students go. You can see that 53.8% of our students are going to a four-year college. Iowa wins out in last year's class, followed by UNI, followed by Iowa State. And those numbers always tend to fluctuate. Sometimes you see UNI at the top. I think the year before, Iowa State was the highest one. So it's always kind of fun to see trend lines, and I'm sure it's not all who's winning football games, but some people may pay attention and keep score.
Jason?
All right.
Jason?
What'd you say, Susan?
Yeah, are the number of students going to Hawkeye, were they higher last year? Because they don't need to take ACTs to go to Hawkeye, correct?
They do not need to take ACT for Hawkeye.
Is the number that are going there higher, so that maybe they don't feel it's quite as important a test as used to be, or?
I think that number, and they're not a part of this particular slideshow, but I think the number was pretty consistent. I don't think we've seen
Okay.
great fluctuation in the students who are going to Hawkeye or not. So that
Okay.
number is probably within 5 students. Could be wrong on that, and that's information our counselors always present to us. But I think that is a norm or it's within an acceptable range. It didn't go way up or way down on that particular year.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Okay, there's my slide again. Here's just a view of ethnicity and composite scores. You know, something we always pay close attention to as we look at opportunities in different ethnicities and, you know, make sure we're serving all populations at a high level. So again, that's just a glance, but something we do pay close attention to. And then we break it out a little bit. You can see in the blue is the males. Male end there was 100. Females were 164. So we had many more females who were assessed than there were males as you look at the data. And then, you know, not only do you get the male-female comparison, you also get the female versus the state, which is all above the state average. You also see the male average versus the state. So you can see that average as well. So that's the slides as far as the ACT. You know, as far as the ACT, our takeaways from that is number one, we're always excited when somebody can score perfect. That's a high bar. It's, I think, a really neat deal when you can have that many students in the 30s range. It's just that we have to continue to evaluate and how do we continue to get students to grow along the way so that, you know, they're as prepared as they can be for the ACT. It's one measure. It's a pretty significant measure if you're looking to get into colleges and other opportunities and different things. So it is something we pay close attention to, and it's usually universally accepted.
So Doug asked a very insightful question as far as the number of testing, but and I know there's all different kind of levers that you get to pull, and so it's not like you can say, well, A happened and so B was the result. But I know, I mean, we're going to, and I'm not going to use the right terminology, so help me out on the right terminology, but I mean, we're going to a different kind of grading system, you know, where we're trying to measure progress and results rather than, hey, you showed up and you were really good at memorizing everything that day and you took your test. And I guess, you know, do you think that we're in a transition period, and because of that, that may have impacted the scores? I mean, I also realize that the class that graduated last year is not the class that graduated, you know, the year before, and so, you know, that can impact as well. But just, I mean, do you sense that there's, you know, are there other things going on?
I don't think that anything that you just mentioned, like with learning-based grading and our progress with that, had any impact on this specific data piece, because many of the practices that we're talking about are not new practices. They've been going on for many years, but they haven't really had a systems approach behind it. So we're getting a lot more continuity in what's going on as a system rather than pockets of where this may be happening within the school system and where it may not be happening in the school system. So, you know, some of grading practices I don't think would be fair to look at a data set and say there's a correlation there, because the class that was at 24.5 2 years in a row would have been exposed to similar grading practices. So I don't see that as a systems piece, because I think a lot of the things that we provide, and you can see it in our subgroups of students who are struggling, there's a lot of growth in those areas. Maybe those students didn't all take the ACT and chose different pathways as well. So there's a lot of things that can go into it, but I don't know that I would say it's too early based on one data set in 1 year to draw a correlation between learning practices and that piece.
So go on, Jeff.
Oh, it was related to that. Go ahead, Ivan.
Okay. Well, mine wasn't related. It was
Okay, all right. So sorry, thank you, Doug. The follow-up, so a different question is, I know it's really easy when we look at the statistics that, you know, that we compare ourselves to Iowa and we compare, you know, and is there, and you mentioned it while you were talking, is there a way that, and I don't know what percentile we fall into as far as, you know, the total gamma of all the schools that take a, I'm just curious to see, you know, if we compare ourselves with our similar percentile, I don't know if we're in the, you know, the 90th percentile, the 80th percentile or something like that, that we compare our performance year over year to our percentile. You know, did our percentile, you know, change versus, you know, the other ones? I mean, it seems like it would be a little bit more meaning, because we want to obviously compare ourselves to what we think are also leading school districts, and, you know, how are they doing, and we've had a board goal of also looking at other leading school districts and learning from them. So that's kind of what's spurning the question as well.
So what I heard within that question was, how do we benchmark against ourselves against the schools that we want to benchmark against? How are we adding up in relation to the schools that we would consider other high achieving or similar makeup of district? Based on just getting these results, haven't really looked at it upon this year. We had been making appropriate gains. You know, when you see our last few years of trend line, the general trend line was heading up. This year took us in a slight dip. So now I think the answer is how do we continue to stack up? Did we see different things? So I do know the state came down slightly, but we went down, 9/10, and I think we need to continue to dig into that, but those are comparisons. I'm very aware of how the other districts who we want to compare ourselves to, how they're doing. But right now, based on the recency of the information coming to us, I'm not that far yet.
One of the challenges to that is that the state does not provide that data for us. So the only way we can get that data is by contacting those schools and asking if they would share their data with us, or they get reported in the Cedar Rapids Gazette or the Des Moines Register, and then we can pull from those. But we won't get the depth of that data either from those media outlets. We generally will just get their composite score. So it is difficult, and a lot of schools are not apt to just want to share their data with other school districts.
Where we do have those conversations is we have MVC or conference principals meetings. And, we have one in the fall, we have one in the spring, and sometimes that's a talking point about, trends that we may see or progress or growth or initiatives that people may be focused on. So a lot of those come out. We don't always publish every part of that because, as Mr. Conrad said, they don't necessarily publish them, but we pay close attention to what's going on, why are we having these impacts, and looking for trends. So that's a general part of our growing conference.
Jason?
Yes.
This is just one measure, too, that colleges look at, right? What other measures do they use to admit students?
Grade point is something that a lot of students or a lot of post-secondary schools look at. They look at ACT scores. Class rank is something that has been really taken out of a lot of schools, and so therefore we're not competing against students within your own class. One of the correlations that we continue to look at is, what does our GPA look like in relation to our ACT scores? What does it mean to get a 4.0 at Cedar Falls High School? What does it mean to get a 3.9 at Cedar Falls High School? Do we see correlations between high GPAs and high ACT? Right now, I feel very favorable that if you've earned a high GPA, you're also correlating going to be a very strong ACT. Not always easily across the board. Some people fluctuate, but those numbers are much smaller. By and large, if you're a 30 ACT, a lot of those students are very high with their GPA. We've celebrated some things different, though. We don't celebrate perfection. Our top student the last few years have not had 4.0 GPAs. They have encountered a B+, a B along the way, but they took such rigorous coursework across the way that those academic risks have been rewarded, and we've acknowledged them because, a 36 ACT doesn't necessarily have a 4.0. Other correlations we look at. We do enjoy that students take academic risks, and that's what we're going to get into in the next PowerPoint.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Can you talk a little bit about are increasing or decreasing SAT? In other words, are people taking the SAT instead of the ACT in addition to?
I don't know that I could tell you right now how many students take the SAT. That would be a counseling discussion I would have, but that's not a report that we really focus on. Students would take the SAT for select colleges, entrances, or different things of that nature. The number of students who take the SAT is pretty small.
Okay.
Well, but if that'd be something of interest,
I was looking at the 9.5% out of state college, and if they're trying to get into some of the more elite schools, they may be taking the SAT, and that might explain the dip.
Could explain that, but I don't know if they also had taken the ACT or they had not taken the ACT. But that's not a piece I know, but we do not have a ton of students who do take the SAT. So.
Jason, I have a question and then a comment. We do have ACT Prep, as you said, our high school teachers offer that, and then there's a ZAPS program as well. When is that offered? Is it only once in the spring? Is it once in the spring and once in the fall? Do you know that?
Typically in preparation for the spring is when we have the high school one provided by the high school teachers, and that's offered one time in a series of evenings. The ZAPS is usually once in the fall and once in the spring, about 2 weeks prior to the assessment. So we do not always have a preparation in advance of every ACT test date, but we do have 2 that are commonly used, and that's where we try and pair with.
Personally, I've seen the results of those
Correct.
prep courses, and they're significant.
Yeah.
So I don't know if there's a way to either encourage students to try and pair that with the time that they schedule to take the ACT, or if there's a way to maybe use Power Hour to offer that. So maybe you're catching students during the day who can't get there during the evening for some of those, but huge proponent and would give a great endorsement to those programs.
The people who have taken the test prep, and we can only measure those by somebody who took the test prep and then took it again, which is 2 really strong steps in there, but they've seen sizable gains. And the feedback coming to us is largely positive. There's a lot of free resources, but a lot of people have to have skin in the game before they'll sit down and spend time on a free resource. We try and provide the time in the seat to actually review it. It's a 5-hour session with ZAPS, or it's 4 different evenings that we cover with the high school program. So,
Are you tracking that, or are you?
yes, we are.
That'd be an
But the
interesting-
hard part is how many students took the test prep for the very first time. You can't show a growth model within
Right.
that.
Well, if you're ever able to give us that, it would be an interesting statistic to see. But my comment is great for test prep, and as you said, this is one measure. What I hope we don't lose sight of, and what I wish our post-secondary institutions would start to recognize, is by doing programs like CAPS and working with Waterloo with their CTE program, doing great on a test for admission into a college is fantastic, but I think these other programs are going to have just as much, if not more, of a benefit for how these students succeed, not only in school, maybe if they continue with that, but in life. So if there's any way that we can find a way to measure that kind of success, I don't know what those measurements are, what those metrics are, but those are really exciting programs that we're kind of leading, at least in our part of the state. I know there's other pockets that are doing similar programs, so I hope that everyone recognizes those kinds of academic endeavors are really important when we're talking about long-term success for our students.
I couldn't agree more with that. Are we willing to risk some of our ACT celebrations at the expense of having students have different type of experiences, learning experiences, and hopefully developing additional resiliency? Maybe they do go to a 4-year college, but the likelihood that they'll graduate in 4 years from the college, the resiliency and the grit to actually stick with it and to actually fulfill what they started. So if we were looking at that, hey, 80% of our students continue to go to post-secondary education, and nearly 80% of them were completing that experience, that would be a real celebration. So I think there's multiple measures that really do add up. This is one specific data point, as you mentioned. But I agree. I went and visited CAPS today and had a wonderful experience, and it's an energizing experience, ones that I want for my own kids, as I see, and that's pretty rewarding, and I'm so glad the board, you're supportive of that, and as we move forward, that's going to be a really big experience for many of our students. And that's not going to be measured necessarily by ACT.
Right.
We're starting to see a little bit of movement of our post-secondary institutions. They're not just locked in on grade point average, class rank, ACT score. They are looking at, what courses are students taking while they're in high school, and what activities are they involved with while they're in high school. And so they're actually looking at more points of data as they make decisions about admission for their college or university than what they ever have in the past. So that just helps us as we continue to look at programs like CAPS and those types of experiences for our students.
I hope they pick up on it, because even for financial aid, so much of that is just based on those 2 measures. And you may take a CAPS course all 4 semesters that you could and not maybe have the highest RAI score, or it might not translate into that GPA, but you're really coming out prepared for a plethora of opportunities that may present themselves to you. So, good.
They're building brands that can separate themselves from the competition. There's no doubt about that. But whether it's an interview process or just putting down on their experiences that may separate yourself from a traditional experience. And some of our students said today they don't see themselves really as high school students when they're in this organization. but they see the high school experience as maybe sitting in a classroom with desks and rows and a teacher, and we want them to understand that the high school experience doesn't necessarily have to look that way. It's still a high school experience, it just doesn't have to be with desks and rows and textbooks in that similar fashion.
And we may be getting the cart in front of the horse right now, but you and I, as a strong partner with us, recognizes that. They're on our advisory groups, they're a site for one of our CAP strands, and actually they have said that they are going to have a scholarship available for any student that participates in a CAP strand. So again, we're getting a little early before we can make some of those formal announcements and the dollar amounts, but that is extremely exciting because they see the value of those job-embedded skills as well as those unique opportunities and project approaches, and tremendous for them.
It's an exciting time for that opportunity to build in our district, there's no doubt about it. Which will lead me to my next piece. Okay, I'm going to pull them all up here. Opportunities for students to earn college credit and high school credit while being enrolled in our high school. That's ultimately what we're getting here within this next piece. And as you see the bottom bullet there, research shows students provided with joint enrollment opportunities are more successful in post-secondary education. Do they understand the workload and the time and what it means to achieve at a high level or be challenged at a high level? As you can see in here, the percent of our graduates enrolled in college-level coursework while attending our high school. That's AP, concurrent, or PSEOA courses. And it'd kind of been a measure that we were shooting to get over 80%, and we've now surpassed that for the very first time. In 2017, 84.3% of our students were enrolled in college-level coursework. Doesn't mean that they have to be full of them, but they at least have an experience of earning college-level credit to understand what post-secondary education may also require. Our advanced placement, we have a lot of them. As a comprehensive school, you can go to many different areas. We've added, AP Human Geography recently. We've added AP Music Theory recently, environmental science. We're trying to, when there's a need and a high likelihood, when you look at our AP Psychology scores and how they achieve, if there's a need and students really have a desire to take them, then we try and be responsive to that. And that's really what we've done with advanced placement, is offer the pathways of where students want to go. A recent addition to that as we go into this is, well, I'm going to hold on as we come through this, but our computer science is an additional adding this year that I think is filled up with 3 sections very quickly. So you can see many of our AP courses, I just mentioned many of them. And we had great results, again, coming back to us with the numbers from last year. We get back the results, and we can look at how our students did, 3 and above, and in many of the areas, we're very strong. In a couple areas, we still need to work to improve. But you can see here, total enrollment in AP courses, 575 enrollments in AP level coursework. That's a growing trend. Again, to get to above 80%, we have to have a number of students who are enrolled in AP level courses. So you can see almost 30% of our high school enrollment. Part that I don't know really how to accept as you look at the trend is last year we had 67% of our students who actually took the assessment at the end of the course. And we understand that sometimes they take it for the academic preparation, because just because they take their course, they may get credit, they may not get credit. They may know that in advance. So sometimes they see themselves as the dollars and don't even take it. They just wanted the learning or the educational preparation. But right now we're at 67%, an average, 10-year average of 70% who actually take the assessment at the end of it. 3+, I think this goes back to what Dr. Shaw had earlier said. As we see the end go up, we have more students taking the assessment. We now have fewer who are achieving. Early on it used to be some of our only top students who took it, and therefore by intuitive maybe top level students, they achieved at a higher level. Now it's dropped a little bit. We're right at about 80% of students who are passing with a 3+. But with the number of students who are exposing themselves and taking an opportunity and a risk, that number is going up.
I should point out that it's a good thing you're using the 3 cutoff. 3 is the number that says the AP program says you're ready for college.
Correct.
Now, individual colleges may not agree and have a higher standard, but if it's below a 3, then AP says don't take the course again in college.
Yep.
You know, I think what's interesting too, it's globally recognized as with this curriculum. You can see on that slide, or within that slide, it shows not only Cedar Falls, the state, but it does show the global averages for 3 and above as well.
So again, in comparison to our own trend line, we may see a slight dip. When you compare us against the state and global aspects, we still do very, very well. Sometimes we're difficult on ourselves, but I think that's how we continue to improve as well. Post-secondary enrollment options. Again, this is going to a regular college or university. And again, it's for 11th and 12th grade students, 10th grade if you've been identified through our TAG program. And there is a district cost. You know, and a lot of times it's courses that you see headed towards an educational degree. Maybe you've explored all of our options. Maybe you've already gone through all of our math courses, and now you're taking courses at UNI, at Calc 3, in different areas like that, where Dr. Shaw probably is aware of those students. But typical classes that you may see, the humanities, the calculus, programming, you know, there's a wide range of different coursework that our students engage in.
So I have a question about the rule. So I will sometimes see a high school student in Calc 1 or 2.
Yeah.
But the rule says courses must be not comparable to courses offered by the high school.
Those
So
would be considered
why do they take Calc at UNI as opposed to AP Calc?
They take AP Calc. That is maybe the equivalent of Calc 1, and then our students, when they go in, will take Calc 2 at UNI. So they have to exhaust all of our courses before they enroll in those.
Okay.
And many of our students would exhaust those and continue on.
Okay.
That's why we get into, sometimes our acceleration plans are a big deal for them, because they can exhaust all of our coursework and then seek other opportunities. But if we have a comparable course, they take our course before they explore the other courses. Good question. They're all good questions. So you can see, I'm just going to click through here so you can see some of the trends. There should be one more. So you can see the numbers of students who may be going to UNI, who may be going to Hawkeye. But at the very bottom, you see, due to a change in state law for 17-18, PSEOA courses can no longer include those taken at a college campus. So if in the past it would be considered PSEOA if they were going to Hawkeye, now anything taken at Hawkeye or in the high school is falling into our concurrent enrollment numbers. And so those no longer count as PSEO. If they're going to UNI, then they would still consider to be the PSEOA.
So it's a community college campus.
Correct. Yep. Okay. Our concurrent enrollment, very fortunate in this situation. A lot of our teachers have the credentials to be able to offer the community college coursework in our building. Our students don't have to travel a lot of times in order for that to happen, and that's a huge blessing for us, that they can more easily fit it within the context of our day or within our schedule. And so a little bit of little of the history. Total of 31 courses are available as concurrent offerings at Cedar Falls High School. And so again, we offer a wide range for what students want to be involved in. They can get college level coursework. Also another piece, we have some parents and students who want to get as much college coursework as they can. And that could be great academic preparation. Sometimes we have to make sure that not all college coursework is going to transfer to the college of choice as seamlessly as sometimes they hope. Either way, it's a good foundation and good learning opportunities. So a few of our concurrent enrollment classes there that you can see, and things that we have offered. Our upper level Spanish is our most recent offerings. We just added Composition 2 as well. We've always offered Composition 1 for quite a while, but Comp 2 has just been added.
If I can make 2 comments on that. The nice thing is, if you would take Comp 1, Comp 2 in speech, that qualifies as the English requirement, I think, for all 3 of our major state universities, UNI, Iowa State, and Iowa, which is great. And then also our CAPS program and the Waterloo CTE program offer that concurrent credit as well. So not only are you getting the great experience, but you're getting college credit too.
Correct. And that's why we offered Comp 2, because, you know, you had to take the trifecta of Comp 1, Comp 2, and Hawkeye Oral Com. And we were offering 2 of the 3 and then forcing them to go and take the 3rd on their own in a more unique situation. And so we just said we need to offer all 3 because that's a benefit to our students. So we try and be responsive in that regard. As you go through some of our career and technical and other offerings, you can see all of our Project Lead the Way courses. You can see our CAPS programming there as well, you know, and the ones along the left. So, like I say, as a comprehensive school, we offer a lot of opportunities for students, a lot of different pathways. Sometimes we, you know, it can be exhausting trying to get everything to fit or give everybody the experience that they're looking for. I think our counselors do a wonderful job of making sure they're connected in the pathways of their interest. Well, to review the numbers, concurrent course rosters, this is concurrent enrollment, you know, hit 996 and then 975 for this year. So our, you know, numbers are pretty strong from when we started, you know, in the 500s to now nearly doubling that and getting in the upper 900s.
Number of students, or that's number of courses?
I think that's course enrollments, which if a student is in multiple, that would say they're counted as enrollments. Okay. Not as students.
Yeah.
Correct.
Any other questions?
I do have one more question. And I think our students that are taking college courses, that is a college course that they attend on campus. So we could have students taking online college courses, which we wouldn't track then, correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
And most of the ones that they're taking for, no, you're exactly right, where they may go and they have to pre-approve that I'm going to take this course and I want to take this course and apply it to meet this particular requirement. And we have some of that. And that's growing. That's another area that we are very attentive to right now is, you know, if you go through our alternative program, you may find some online coursework. We're also looking at, you know, I think every student who eventually graduates from Cedar Falls High School should have at least one online experience, because that is such a prevalent experience for many people in post-secondary or whatever pathway you may look. You should at least be exposed to what one online course, and it could be multiple online courses. But I think there's a balance within everything. But I think it would not serve us well if we didn't at least prepare students for what an online course may look like and feel like and how to be successful.
Right. So currently, and for something for the future, we would have to look at how we fund that, because right now we do not fund courses that are taken online.
Correct.
We only
That's correct.
fund student courses who are in a seat in the classroom.
Yep. And we do have some coursework that we do and we could offer without additional cost to individuals. We are just now starting to have some of those conversations and discussions, but right now, you know, the individual is seeking their online experience at the college and then transferring it in.
Good questions. Any other questions?
And just one more comment. You did mention how many teachers we have that are credentialed to teach these courses so students can stay within our high school campus. And I just want to stress to our community how rare that is. We are one of the few schools who have that many credentialed teachers and can offer that many courses within our school day on our high school campus, because most neighboring school districts, some of the more rural school districts, they are doing a lot. They have to go online, and they either have to go to main campus or they have to go to a center. But so we are very lucky in Cedar Falls to have the resources that we do with our teaching staff, and it just keeps growing every year. So I hope people really understand that is not common for most school districts in our area.
We have a tremendous staff, and that's certainly one of those benefits of having a staff that's so professional and so forward-thinking that we can offer those opportunities.
Accrediting body of community colleges recently upped the ante with regards to the experiences and credit level of the instructors that they approve to teach a concurrent course. So a number of our teachers already met that high bar, but we've had some teachers that have had to take additional coursework to remain eligible to teach those courses. And
we had a bubble at UNI of them.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I don't know how attuned you would be to this piece, but the part that I feel, you know, we hired 15 new teachers at the high school this past year. And the part that I feel that I think you're well aware of, but I don't want to take assumption from Dr. Batty to Dr. Talbot to Mr. Conrad specifically, is the ability to hire the most qualified staff to put in the classrooms. I feel like our opportunities to find the person that has schooling, educational experience, fits into our system at a high level. Sometimes it costs a little bit more to be able to employ those people, but the return on investment for what they do for our students on a daily basis, I don't think can ever be overlooked. So having that opportunity and participating in the hiring process, Dr. Talbot and I connect a lot on these, and we discuss, and so the support that you provide to hire the most qualified staff for our students on a daily basis should never go unnoticed, because that's a big deal, and it only takes one parent to not have a great experience with a teacher before I hear about it, and I don't have to hear that much about it because our staff are so qualified. So thank you for that support in doing that.
Thank you, Jason.
I'd like to thank you for your report and how detailed this was, not only for us, but for those who might be viewing. And I know tomorrow's paper will report all these other things other than a decline in ACT. Half of the students at Cedar Falls High School are taking AP courses. Right. And we take statewide over 1.1% of the state taking the ACTs come from Cedar Falls. So we are a big part of that puzzle. And thank you for explaining all those other areas with the concurrent enrollment and the CAPS program and the value that we get from that.
I think we're invested in the right work. Like I say, you can't just look at ACT or one different part and just say that tells the whole tale. The experience that we provide many of our students, I think, is outstanding.
I'd also like to comment that it also requires more teachers, but also more classroom availability. And in a high school that's growing, we are in need there too.
Well, yes, we have some of our most prized, when you look at our Project Lead the Way sequence and how proud we are of the students that we turn out and how they may engage in different things in the closet from which they work. Kudos to Zeb Nicholson and Dirk Homewood for the work that they do, given the structures that they're provided. So, and that goes across the building in many ways. So anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Moving on to the high school pre-planning agreement. Dr. Petty.
And again, that was a tremendous segue. We are extremely honored and excited to have Brad Leeper from Envision Architecture here to talk a little bit about the pre-planning work that we know we need to do as we look to the future for the needed new high school. And I think Mr. Wedgbury summed it up. We have people that are certainly working in some areas that are not conducive to what we know we need to do for those students as we continue to prepare them for those next steps and to be successful in the either at college or in their career. I know traditionally we have always had Envision work on our high school, and that continues because of their excellence across the state, across the country. We do know that the one high school bond that we had now, 4 or 5 years ago, we heard that we wanted, in our community, needed more clarity. They wanted schematics. They wanted to be able to see and be able to try to interpret what spaces would mean when we talk about 21st century learning and certainly flexible spaces, as well as having very concrete and accurate costs. So that is why we have this pre-planning agreement before you. That's why we're, again, excited to have Brad with us this evening to talk through this and talk with us a little bit about that.
All right, thank you, Andy. First of all, I appreciate the opportunity to continue a decades-long, really, partnership between Envision and the Cedar Falls Community School District. So we're going to talk a little bit. We have a presentation to go through the planning process a little bit, and really it's just the start of what this might be. But we really want to dig in and think about kind of where we're going and how this might get fleshed out over the coming months. So the first part is really just kind of getting organized and getting started. And that starts with assembling a team, and that is a broad team, which includes a steering committee. How do we get together a group of community leaders, staff, students, to really represent the district kind of needs in the future. We are going to be bringing as Dr. PT said, we're very interested in costs, and we're going to be bringing a construction manager on board. We're going to be looking into that process so that we can really be responsible with the dollars and be comfortable with them. And so we're going to be bringing those groups onto our team. We will have some consulting and explorer consultants. We're currently looking at bringing an educational planning consultant on board to assist us, our team, and we've worked with that. It's really an individual who is a lifelong educator, not an architect, but really an educator who also does some planning, and we've had success working with them. They'll be helping with some engagement in the community and staff as we go through this process. And then just really, we're getting going with some project organization, background documentation for what is going to be the kind of core that we're going to use in the study as we move forward. And then we really just need to talk about what that end product is as we get the committee together. What is it that we want to get out of this? And what do we feel as a group is the best way to go through that process? So this is a suggestion about how we might go through that. And when we get the steering committee on board, we're gonna dig into that a little bit deeper. So the first piece is what we call discovery. And that's about kind of benchmarking is a piece of that in terms of the data collection. What are the current conditions that we're dealing with? We're going to be going out and seeing some other schools. We've already looked at the new Johnston High School as one example, and there's some really good things about that and some things that, that maybe would change. Our goal as we go through this process is to find out, what is the Cedar Falls way, right? And so it's going to be an engaged process that we look at those pieces. We're also going to be looking at some other trends, looking forward, what's coming up in the future. So following some of the data collection, really establishing the vision, what are those opportunities, kind of constraints that we see moving forward? What are the goals of the committee and the community as we go into this process? And then that will kind of result in what we call guiding principles. What are those things that we're going to measure success with as we start to look at solutions? And so we like to talk about this as problem seeking before we're problem solving, and that's what this process is really about. So once we can determine those guiding principles, we'll try and quantify that vision a little bit, and that might mean some space programming in terms of what are those spaces we're really going to have? How big are they? What are their relationships as they move forward? So once we get through that process, you can see a few images up on the screen, but those are really meant to, it's an engaging process, and it's meant to really get broad input into that process. So after that, we'll look at strategy, and that's really what are we going to do? So we're going to define the why in the first process, and then really look at what are we going to kind of put together. We'll be looking at some diagrams of what might a school look like, what are the strategies for organization very broadly, and then we're going to dig in specifically for some plan diagrams again about what the Cedar Falls way is. We'll eventually be looking at some kind of three-dimensional massing of the building and the site. There's some concerns about just pieces of the communities has represented since the last vote, and so we want to address those things and make sure we're responding to those questions. And then eventually, an idea of what the building might look like. Those are still diagrams. It's not a complete process, but enough to identify the scope of work so that we can be responsible with the dollars that we're talking about. And then finally, the last piece is really about testing and refinement of those options, getting those communications out, getting feedback, looking at budgeting and scheduling and phasing of the project, and seeing how those things might work. So that's a start anyway.
Where does the Facilities Committee fit in with this initial process?
That's a good question. I think how we haven't really organized the committee yet, and we're still looking at that. I don't know, Andy, if you've thought through that yet or not.
Yes. In fact, there's multiple different groups that would be involved with this, but we will In fact, we're having the discussion today that we're going to reach out to our facility committee to get them back together probably before we even start necessarily this process, which is to walk through all the different updates and informational components that have been going on for the last multiple months. We've not met with them probably for anywhere from 9 to 10 different months. So it's an opportunity to bring them back together, to bring them up to speed, and then continue to expand that group. Part of that steering committee, we know that there's going to be probably some board representation on that as well. And then we also talked about just kind of a subgroup of the school board that's going to be facilities. So I think the most important part is to have broad representation across our community to make sure that we have multiple people vested and provide feedback, and part of that will be our facility committee, part of that will be other subgroups, part of that will be our school board. And that's going to be that discovery and strategy phases that I think Brad summed up well.
Then I just have a technical question. So I'm looking at the agreement that we're voting on, and the billing rates are from 2015, 2016. Are they the same?
I think it's an error in the dates. So those are current billing rates.
But so the rates are correct then?
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Any other questions? Jeff?
Community engagement is going to be so vital for us to be able to get a new high school, and I know, I guess part of the reason why we're doing this is you've already engaged in some of those conversations, Dr. Petit, and I guess maybe just, I mean, I think that's great, so I'd like you to be able to talk about already the community engagement that you've already started to work on.
Yes, we've actually had opportunities to meet with some of our key community leaders, as well as some other leaders across our the Cedar Falls Community School District. We've met with them as for feedback to us, as well as key information on the why. We've approached this too to look at the overall economic development and what this means, not only short term for the community of Cedar Falls, our students of Cedar Falls, but certainly the larger economic region. So we've been working with multiple different groups and subgroups just to be able to start that dialogue, so people understand that why, they can speak about the why, then they can help answer questions as they come up with those factual responses that we know are so extremely important.
Any other questions?
This is exciting work. This is work that we know it's going to not be done in a week, in a month. It's going to take some time. It's going to take an opportunity to elicit information and feedback. It's going to be reaching out to a lot of our staff and our faculty across our district, but certainly our community as a whole, be able to ask them to help define that vision and that future, because there are some great models that are out there for newer structures and that new way that, again, Mr. Wedgbury just talked about, as well as did Brad, about what that next step is for the future of education, be it some online works, be it some hands-on project approaches that we know we have to provide for our students. We need spaces that allows us to do that for a growing economy, for a growing population of students, and very, very exciting.
And we did hear loud and clear last time too that the community really wanted to be able to see something. They needed to conceptually, I mean, they couldn't just imagine what it would look like. They needed to physically see something. And so that pre-planning, I think, will go a long ways to trying to explain the why behind it also. So thank you, Brad.
Thank you.
And money that we'd spend on this contract is, so in one sense, this is money that we would spend anyway if we were proceeding with the project, and it doesn't, obviously, we will never actually proceed until the voters have approved the bond, but this isn't money that we're going to spend twice. Is that right?
Yes, that is correct. And this is money that we have saved for to utilize our dollars that we have, in our bank, so to speak, that we show the board monthly. Money that we know is going to really focus on that pre-planning, kind of that phase one. you know, that next step, once there's a bond referendum and a successful bond referendum, that's when we move in. And anything that's done in phase 1 is going to be not replicated in phase 2. So these are dollars that would be invested. They're dollars that they would be spent, but we know how important it is to make sure that the phase 1 is done appropriately with that feedback, to have those schematics, to have the site plan layout. Those dollars spent now would be spent in the future if we didn't do this now, but they won't be duplicated or replicated.
Any other questions?
If we approve this tonight, will the pre-planning start right away?
The hope is we will probably have discussions tomorrow to be able to start wrapping our minds around those next steps in the pre-planning process, as well as to dig deeper into all the different subgroups that are out there. So yes, it will start probably within the next 12 to 16 hours.
Okay, great.
We're already
thanks.
thinking about it.
We will let them sleep.
Yes.
Okay. Do we have a motion to approve the pre-planning agreement?
I move to approve entering into a pre-referendum design service agreement for a new high school with Envision Architecture, Waterloo, Iowa, as per the letter of understanding between Envision Architecture and the Cedar Falls Community School District, dated August 17th, 2017.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
If I want to put into this that we correct the typo on page 3, is that a friendly amendment? How do we do that?
Yes.
Sure.
I'd like to offer a friendly amendment that we change on page 3, 2015-2016 to 2017-2018.
All in favor?
I need a second.
Oh, second, sorry.
Second again.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Back to the original.
That's for the amendment.
Yeah,
Now do
back to the original,
Yep.
yeah. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
And Joyce, I will be abstaining.
Thank you, Jenny.
Thank you. And very good friendly amendment. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Brad.
Thank you.
My amendments are the friendliest.
They always involve numbers too.
Moving on to item J, approval of substantial completion of the North Cedar Portable Relocation Project.
And
Mr. Nusker.
that would be me. We'll try and make this short.
I think that was the first ribbon cutting I'd ever seen after a portable had been moved, just so you know.
If I can get it up here, if you'll give me just a second.
And those in the audience are, we had a kind of an impromptu ribbon cutting for the portables that were moved to North Cedar this summer. So not necessarily something that was publicized or official, but it came out through Twitter. So correct.
And I really appreciate the fact that you had a ribbon cutting. I've been through many of those in my career. Here is the final budget summary for the moving of the portables from Orchard Hill to North Cedar. You can see that the original contract amount total that included moving of the units from the Orchard Hill to North Cedar was just over $122,000. We did have 2 change orders on this project that pushed us over our original budget, but they're certainly well justified. The first one was at the time we moved the portables, quite honestly, the playground, the intent was to come across the playground to the east to set the units. And believe it or not, when we did this, it was very wet. It's hard to believe by being outside lately. And so we were very afraid if we were to have taken those portables across the playground, they might have become stuck. And that would have created a real problem. So how we solved that problem was that for those of you that remember North Cedar, there was a canopy on the south side of the building. We had that canopy removed. Now we would have had to have that canopy removed anyway. So roughly $9,500 of that $23,000 was for the removal of that canopy. We would have had to have covered it one way or the other. The second part of it is we added an additional ramp for the staff so that when they transition out of the building, they go right onto the ramp and right down to the portable. That was more of a safety change for our staff more than anything else. And it also, in a backdoor sort of way, will help our contractor doing the work to sort of fence off the area when they begin their work on the project later this month. So that's why we have the two change orders, a little bit of miscellaneous stuff on the bottom. So you can see the total amount's 138,653. Yes, we're 16,000 over, but I think they were both well-deserved and well-justified change orders, and we would recommend approval.
And just for clarification for everybody, because of the addition at Orchard Hill on the north side of the building, these two portables sat there. So we knew that North Cedar, because of some of the additions, remodeling, and then tear down, we needed to be able to create enough space for staff and students there, that these portables, because they needed to be moved anyway from Orchard Hill in that addition, were moved over to North Cedar to be able to do and to house those programs. So both buildings are losing space during the addition and remodeling, and certainly we had to make some accommodations in that with our staff, our parents, our students, but this is the reason why those are now at North Cedar.
Do I have a motion to approve the substantial completion of the North Cedar Portable Relocation Project?
I move that the Cedar Falls Community School District Board of Education accept as complete the North Cedar Elementary Portable Relocation Project. All claims for materials furnished, labor performed, and/or services provided on this contract must be filed within the next 30 days.
Thank you, Jim. Do I have a second?
Second?
Thank you, Jenny. Any further discussion or questions? Yes, Jeff.
So this was within our realm of the budget, the overall budget that we approved for North Cedar?
Actually, this project comes out of PEPL, and so it was part of the master plan for that was approved by the community. So, but yes, it basically falls within that budget amount. We're slightly over, but it's pretty minor.
And this will just be temporary, right? Because once North Cedar is completed, then we'll be moving into another location.
One way or the other, upon completion of the project, those portables will disappear. And that has yet to be determined how, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
Any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Approval of the board policy, second of two readings.
Yes, this is just the second of two readings. We needed to update some of our 400 series policies due to changes and new changes within the Iowa Code. We had our policy committee review these. We went over these in a previous board meeting as well. This affects 11 of our 400 series policies, and we certainly recommend adopting the second of these two readings.
Do I have a motion to approve the board policy, second of two readings?
So moved.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Thank you for all your work on this.
Yes, thank you.
Moving on then to item L, the election of director, Central River, I am having a hard time with this. Central River AEA Board of Directors, District 7.
Yes, every 4 years we have the honor of casting a vote for a board member to the Central Rivers AEA.
Formerly
This one we
AEA
first
267.
Yes, formerly AEA 267, now Central Rivers AEA. Typically, if it's a contested race, I think board candidates would come before us, they'd have a discussion, and we'd have a chance to ask questions and maybe talk about their philosophical approach. But there is an incumbent. It is the only individual that has submitted a statement of candidacy. It is a former actual school board member from the Cedar Falls Community School District, Richard Vandekieft. Our recommendation would be that we would approve the election of Director Richard Vandekieft to the Central Rivers AEA Board of Directors, District 7. District 7 does encompass 3 school districts, the Cedar Falls District, the Denver School District, as well as the Janesville School District, and those 2 boards will be also casting a vote as well.
All right, do I have a motion to approve the election of this director or nomination of this director?
So moved.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Any questions or comments?
Just a question kind of on the process. Do we publicize that we're looking for candidates for this?
You know, our role is to just simply look at the candidacies and who has submitted the applications and submitted their names to be able to run, and then it's the local school districts boards that actually then make that ballot or make that vote. I'm not sure exactly what they do or what the requirements are for application. We just vote on who has submitted their names.
So they collect the applications.
Correct.
They forward them to us. We review and then vote on them.
Yes, we received a letter from them that just outlined who has submitted the names, as well as the really brief process and our responsibility with that enclosed ballot that they sent to us to return that to them by September 30th, 2017. So we're not involved on any of the processes. The role that we have is to take the ballot and then cast the vote that we decide on, and there's only one person on the ballot.
Okay. And so since, again, this is for me learning, so since this person is representing us, what accountability do they have back to us?
Typically every 4 years, and I think it might be now a 3-year cycle, they will come and they'll have a kind of question and answer session. We did that I think maybe 2 or 3 years ago during one of our board admin retreats in January. And Mr. Randy Keefe was there, as well as some of the directors from the AA were there and came in and just kind of updated on some of their services. They answered some questions that either board members or administrators might have, and then just talked about some of their future processes and expectations as they continue to serve students.
I'd also like to say, thank you too to Dick for continuing in this role. He has committed his life to education for our students and the communities around, and I just want to say thank you to him again, even though I know he's not there tonight, but for running again for this position and making a difference for our kids.
Yes, he's tremendously passionate about education and excellence in education, and we appreciate that greatly.
Thank you, Susan. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving on to superintendent's report.
Yes, just a couple of different items. September 25th is our organizational meeting of the board. Just a reminder that tomorrow we do have school board elections, and encourage everybody to get out and vote. On that night, we also will have an informational report from robotics and STEM as well. We do have October board meeting dates as October 9th and October 23rd. The Iowa Association of School Boards Convention is on November 15th through the 17th. We'll send out more information as that becomes and comes closer. We do have several different information reports coming up, and we will start selecting board committee assignments on that October 9th date. So a lot of action and activity over the next several weeks. And when you say October, it's hard to believe that that's going to be here before we know it.
All right. Questions, comments, or concerns from the board?
We should remind people that they should bring an ID to vote.
Thank you, Doug.
Thank you for that.
That's a change.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments, or concerns?
In fact, we'll put that out via social media as well, just to make sure that people remember that. Thank you.
Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 We are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.